Good afternoon, everybody. This is Kate Archibald, your host of the day. All right. Well, we got a really cool topic that we're going to be diving into. Before we jump into that, I want to cover some of our announcements for the day. So we got the amazing Annie Asher here with us. Annie,
Hi.
how you doing?
Yeah, so let's talk announcements. Session 4 is coming up in like 2 weeks, which is nuts. We are getting ready. It's going to be such a great event. So December 3rd and 4th, if you have not registered, please do. It's going to be great. We will have virtual and live options. We've got a powerful lineup of both practice management stuff, ROF goodies, how to build that up, communications, and then of course, delivery of services. So Dan will be teaching blood chemistry, Reagan's be teaching peptides and all the goods, and of course the ROF, which is always the steal or the steals the show, I think. Anyway, we're going to be talking psilocybin, testosterone, all the things. So be there.
All right. Well, we're going to dive into our topic of the hour, which I'm pretty excited. This one's really important. So, setting proper expectations for healing timelines. I think that's it's sometimes a tough one, right, Reagan?
I think like if we think of the struggle of it, a lot of us, we get in this kind of mindset that we think our patient should just be patient with the healing, and they just need to comply and go along with it. And sometimes we get frustrated because we think, well, they have no idea how long. We use the question. I don't know if you had your instructors at your school tell you this, Dan, is when patients weren't making progress, and they would say, well, it took you 20 years to get to the condition you're in. It's going to take us the same amount of time to get rid of it. And I'm like, well, that's like, I would fire that person, like slap them. Like, you're a shitty doctor if it's going to take you 20 years. Like, I might be dead by the time you're done with me.
Yeah, it's crazy. Well, and it's a scary thing, like feeling like you're putting an expectation out there. So it has to be realistic on part of the practitioner. I think a lot of people, though, like on those really severe cases, they're afraid to give people time. Like some people, they want the quick fix.
Yeah.
So you have to set something that's realistic so they understand that it's a process, why it's a process, but also give them something that's not going to keep them on the hook. Like I've had it for 6 years. I'm like, well, and at the turn of the century, we'll have this under control. That's a crazy response.
Right. By 2030, we're going to really have this thing wrapped up for you. Would you like to pay in advance for a discount? Our 8-year program. So the thing about expectations, where I see most people get frustrated, is they feel like the patient is not on board. They feel like the team can't get on board with it, or the patient has too high of expectations entering into it. And so what's the problem if a patient has too high of expectations that you've seen, Dan?
Well, you're going to have a lot of frustration, and you're going to have failure from their viewpoint, right?
Yes. Yep. And when a patient doesn't feel like they're making progress, all meaning gets sucked out of what they're doing. And so they naturally, they just feel kind of almost, I've had patients almost feel betrayed when they haven't made the progress that they wanted. And it's, and they say, well, look, I know you didn't promise anything, and I know there's no guarantees, but this is what I thought, and this is what I expected. And so these conversations can really slow the flow of your practice, especially if you've got a busy practice and you have a certain amount of time allocated for that patient and you want to be focused on productive conversations. Well, today, what we're going to cover is everything that you ever wanted to know about how to set proper expectations, why road mapping is important, and then what to do with the 3-4-5 methods so that you never have to have the conversation again and have patients scratching their head wondering if your services are actually valuable to them or not. So should we jump into some of the tactics? Or first of all, before we do, how many of you can think of a patient experience that you've had recently, or maybe it's in the past, where you felt like there was some frustration from the patient because expectations weren't met. Okay, so, and I tell you, when you get defensive, that's when you want to say, well, why don't you go back to your other doctor? He did a lot of good for you, didn't he? Or, well, what did you expect? I'm not a miracle worker. I'm not wearing robes and I don't have long Jesus hair. I mean, whatever story is going on in your head, I'm going to ask you guys right now, you got to let that go. And this takes incredible humility, and it takes courage, which I find are like two sides of the same coin. It takes extreme courage to confront the expectations, to do it up front, and then to do it every step of the way throughout the process. And this is, even if you're treating them for the 50th time in acupuncture, you still want to tell them why you're putting a needle where and what's going on in their pulse and what their tongue looks like. It's not the time to go soft just because they've been with you a long time. It's actually, I find you need to increase the value that you're offering rather than decrease it. And a lot of us think, oh, they've been coming for so long, we can loosen up the reins. We don't need to provide quite the care. We don't really need to be on time for that appointment because they never get mad at us. Well, I can tell you that's the wrong mindset. And so let's jump into some expectations. Well, first of all, with expectations, there's this concept at Go Wellness that we call road mapping. And Dan, how would you describe road mapping? Because you and I have talked about this quite a bit over the years.
Yeah, I think road mapping, one, it's a preview of, it's basically like a movie trailer, right?
Yep.
It's a preview of things to come, but it has to be tailored to fit that particular person. You can use like the 5 pillars or the 3-4-5 method to kind of foretell the story for them, but it has to be about them. Like, you can't just say, well, we're going to go through detoxification and digestion, and we're moving through nutrition, and then hormones, exercise, and brain and nervous system health. I mean, that's a very rough map that you'd see on a rack in a store, and it means nothing to the person. So that road mapping has to be what their journey is going to look like. And it has to include the steps that we're taking. It has to include how they're going to feel, what's going to change. It has to, and a really good way to do it is also to include some of the hurdles that are going to come along the way.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to expect to see some things like this, and that's all right. My like, when I'm road mapping, I always address the retest.
Yes.
Because we're going to see what's working, and we're going to see what's not working, right?
Yes.
That type of thing. So I think it's a preview of their future with us.
Yeah.
That it's like definitely like a movie trailer, but about them.
Man. And here's the thing is, if you set proper expectations, I always say, look, these things never go as planned because, like mathematics, you add a couple equations together and you can always come up with the right number at the end. With biology, when we shift one thing in your body, there's going to be other things that start showing up. And that's where I love the EPIC process that we take patients through. I said, well, even in your phase 1, in the removal phase, there might be some emotional things that come up, and that's totally normal. I had a patient reach out to me and said, man, ever since I did that liver cleanse, and then you put me on these peptides, I just feel like I speak my mind. I don't have any filter left. And I said, well, that's probably really healing for you. They say, yeah, it is. It feels really good to me, but not to the other people on the other side. So sometimes even when you get a person's energy opened up, they're going to set some boundaries that are, can be pretty shocking for the people who are closest to them. So that's one of the things we want to look at is what's going to happen emotionally. What does it look like from a physical perspective? So physically, with pain, sometimes it could get worse. When we do these regenerative medicine therapies on your knees, man, we have, maybe 20, 30%. So expectations are one thing that Western medicine does a great job at. If they're a good Western doctor, is because they have studies and they can say, well, here's what the research shows about, 50% of the participants actually had positive outcomes. The other 40% had mildly positive outcomes. And then, there was, 10% that just didn't respond, So if you can give people an expectation about, how other people have responded and how long it's taken, that can be something else that's really powerful. And I think expectations are pretty magical because, if you think about it, an expectation is not like it's not a judgment like, hey, you're going to be a good patient or you're not, or we're going to be a good practice or we're not. But an expectation is where you can really set an intention. And so that person, if you can get their brain on board with what you're delivering and the care that you're giving them, then they start to see that, oh man, this roadmap that you've laid out for me, I'm going to have some, there's going to be some Herx reactions that might come up with this SIBO diet. I'm going to get sick before I get better. That's normal. I've got Candida overgrowth or Klebsiella or some, bacterial overgrowth. That's no problem. You're going to have some issues in the removal phase, but, prep them for that. And then on the infection side, this is a big one that I see. I said, look, sometimes as we're removing infections from your body, you're just going to have a couple of days where you need to take it easy, slow down. And then we're going to clear out these infections. But the stronger your body gets, we may clear out one level of that infection. And then 3 months later, now your body's ready to do deeper healing. And so then we start breaking up the biofilms. And by the way, LL37 is now available from VPI. Dan, that was just a genius collaboration with VPI. So anyway, for biofilms, I think LL37 is going to be like one of those medicines for infections that we're just going to see skyrocket in the future. So anyway, then you go into the chemical traumas, hey, look, be expecting us to put you through some kind of detox. Also be expecting us to, really making sure that your house is cleaned out. You're not, consuming things from plastics, and so if you set proper expectations up front for that, just think of that EPIC process. It's really nice because patients, they can get on board with it. So some of the expectations I like to set, and Cade, you've seen this in our pre-education, but expectations about how we like our patients to schedule in advance, pay in advance. What changes from just even a business perspective when you can set proper expectations of how we like to operate our practice?
Yeah. So the question is how is it beneficial on that side for the overall operations?
Yes.
It's so up front, if we can set the right expectations and then really have the program all mapped out for the patient, get it on the schedule from an operations standpoint, it makes the clinic flow much better because, if you think about all the time and effort it takes, and even if it takes 2 minutes or 10 seconds for the patient to reschedule every time they come in, or, set their next appointment, that's an efficiency killer. So if you can have it all scheduled out, that's a huge important piece. The other part is we've seen with the clinic or with the patients, if we don't have like a really good roadmap for them on what, like they just invested a lot of money into this big program. Now, what do I do next? And it's like, oh, well, we'll see you in a month. And then we'll see you in a month after that. And like, they don't really have it mapped out. It's really nice to have all their appointments printed out for them. It says, this is everything you're doing. These are the different appointment types. They go home with that. They got the warm fuzzies, like knowing they're getting taken care of and everything's moving forward. It helps with refund. Like, you don't have the people that are like, what did I just pay for? And I've only had 3 visits. And what are you guys doing? Like, it actually provides value to where people know they invested in this thing. Here's the long-term trajectory and plan, and they feel comfortable with it.
Hey everybody, Reagan Archibald here with Go Wellness. And if you liked this episode, if it actually helped inspire you to be a better practitioner, help more people, establish a much better foundation for your business, then I'm going to ask a favor of you. And that favor is for you to share this with somebody you care about and love in the healthcare field. I don't mind if it's an acupuncturist, a functional medicine practitioner of any sorts, a naturopathic doctor, a medical doctor, any type of endocrinologist or specialist. We need to get this community strong, and we can't do it without your help. So I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the hard work you're putting in and day out. I know it can be a grind, especially with some of the chronic cases that you're treating, but this show will help transform the way that you think, help transform the way you practice, and change the lives of thousands. Thank you for being part of our community.